Once, Emily stole my fiancé, Yosef, from me, discarded him, and then vanished without paying the compensation she owed to her parents. Now, she stands before us, making snide remarks. Your husband is quite a bit older, isn't he? What does he do for a living? My husband is a doctor. Compared to him, your husband looks poor. He has quite the muscles though. Could it be that he works on a construction site? But before I could retort, my husband, Tom, stopped me. I do physical work. Speaking of doctors, does that mean he works at the Blue Island General Hospital? Yes. He's a surgeon. Oh. He's actually one of my subordinates, you know? What? The surgeon at Blue Island General Hospital, Ken, right? I believe his specialty is orthopedics. What, really? Yes, pleased to meet you. I'm the chief of surgery at the General Hospital, Tom. After encountering Emily and getting into the car to go home, I burst into tears, and Tom asked me. I've been thinking a bit. Tell me, Mary, how do you want to deal with her going forward? Deal with her? That's impossible, obviously. Just thinking about it makes me feel suffocated. There was a time when just thinking about Emily would give me panic attacks. Yeah, I understood that you really don't want to be anywhere near that woman. So, I have an idea. An idea? Yes. A way to ensure that a woman never appears before you again. My name is Mary. A 32-year-old homemaker. Currently, I live a peaceful and enjoyable life with my husband, Tom, who is 12 years older than me, and our 3-year-old son. Tom is incredibly busy with his work, something he takes great pride in. I find fulfillment in supporting him and our family. It's somewhat rare these days for someone to dedicate themselves to homemaking as I do. At least, that's what my parents have told me. We are truly a happy family now. But getting here wasn't without its hardships. You see, I once experienced a great betrayal by someone I thought was my best friend. Emily, who I met in college and shared the same major with, was my friend. No, my best friend. Coming to a metropolitan university, I was a bit intimidated, but Emily reached out to me. She was bright, flashy, and always on the move, and I was amazed yet followed her lead. For someone as plain and serious as I had been through high school, she opened up a whole new world for me. And our relationship continued even after we graduated. We both found jobs in companies within the city and would often meet up for meals whenever we had time. Eventually, I met Yosef. A young man working in sales at a manufacturer that did business with the trading company I worked for. As a clerk, I started getting invited out by him, and our relationship developed from there. Honestly, having had little experience with men before, I was over the moon. Things progressed quickly, and after a year of dating, we got engaged when I was 26. I must have been quite smitten at the time. You've been neglecting our friendship, haven't you? Emily would sometimes say, noticing the change. Well, it's not like I could split myself into two. It was only natural that I started spending more holidays with Yosef. Do you have something to hide from me? Not hiding anything, but... Emily had never introduced someone she was dating to me either. So, I thought friendship and romantic relationships were separate. We were planning our wedding together, so naturally, my time was taken up by him. I can't say I didn't want to surprise Emily by not telling her. Or rather, I was embarrassed. Introducing him to Emily, who could easily talk and hang out with any guy, felt daunting. I was scared of how she would see him through her eyes. But as the wedding drew closer, I thought it would be okay. I have someone I want you to meet, I told Emily, introducing her to Yosef. Oh my! You're being secretive, Mary. Keeping things from your best friend? That's cold. Emily slapped my back with a full-faced smile. But that turned out to be a mistake. When the wedding reservation and preparations were almost settled, he suddenly came to my parents' house and said, I'm sorry, Mary. I can't marry you. When I asked why, he said, Emily is pregnant. I couldn't understand what he meant right away. After that, it was a mess. Whether Emily was really pregnant didn't matter anymore. He called off the wedding when it was just around the corner. I'm terribly sorry. Instead of me, who was in shock, my father, almost furious, started berating him. It would have been worse if my mother hadn't stopped him. The wedding was cancelled. While I was helpless, my parents, furious that he did this to our only daughter, demanded he pay the full cancellation fee. They also demanded compensation from Emily. He acknowledged his fault and paid what he owed, and apologized sincerely. My memory of that time isn't clear. I was in shock, seemingly escaping reality. So, learning later that Emily had skipped town without apologizing or paying compensation was another blow. It turns out she wasn't actually pregnant, according to a letter left behind. The lie and her disappearance hit me hard again. What was she thinking? Emily's parents were also furious. When this rumor spread among my college friends, I received another shock. I didn't say anything because you didn't notice, but Emily has been taking and discarding guys you liked, one after another. That was news to me. Why would she do that? I don't know. Even though Emily was popular in her own right, whenever someone showed interest in you, she'd make them date her instead. Maybe she was jealous when guys approached you instead of her? But we were best friends. Were you? I was stunned. Back then, it looked more like you were following Emily around. That's what everyone thought Emily intended. Honestly, those words hit me hard. Not only that Emily thought that way, but that I hadn't noticed it at all, and my lack of judgment when it came to men. On top of that shock, the gaze of the woman who was stolen just before her wedding at work made me mentally exhausted. I eventually quit my job and spent some time recovering at my parents' house. After settling down, I started job hunting again at 28 and began dating activities on my parents' suggestion. Having lost confidence in my judgment, I felt more trustworthy of the matchmaker profiles sent by my relatives. Among them, I met Tom. He was too busy with work to even think about women, and by the time he realized it, he was this age. Given he was turning 40, his surroundings were worried and arranged a meeting for him. I decided to marry him because he honestly expressed that work is work, and I might neglect home sometimes. Considering my past failure, we only informed close family and senior work colleagues about the wedding. The following year, I was supposed to take maternity leave, but at that time, Tom was headhunted by a different workplace in another regional city, leading to our move. Though I felt bad for the workplace I hadn't been at for long, everyone sent us off kindly. And so, our new life as a family of 3 began in a new place. Wow! Could it be, Mary? One day, out of the blue, Emily appeared right in front of me. That day, we were shopping at the mall as a family of 3. Our main goal was the home improvement center. Since moving here, we've been gradually working on our new home's interior ourselves. DIY has always been a hobby of mine. Tom's new job came with a higher position and, thankfully, less irregular hours. Now, he occasionally helps with picking up heavy items. Well, at the moment, he's giving our son, Henry, a shoulder ride. But in that mall, what were the odds? Emily? Long time no see. Wow, you got married. Yeah, but Emily, you're in this town. Yeah, I moved here for my husband's job. So, this man is your current husband, huh? Emily looked us up and down. Then, in a snide tone to Tom, he's quite a bit older, isn't he? Tom simply replied, yes, well, I tend to get caught up in my work. Mary's friend, are you? Yes, I'm Emily. But speaking of work, what do you do? Emily! Isn't that a bit forward? Oh, Mary, are you still mad about it? It's not about that. My husband is a doctor. Compared to him, your husband looks poor. He's got quite the muscles though. Does he work on a construction site? She was clearly judging by appearances alone. That kind of remark. But before I could argue back, Tom intervened. Yes, I do physical work. By the way, does that mean your husband works at the Blue Island General Hospital? Yes. He's a surgeon. Oh. He's actually one of my subordinates, you know? What? The surgeon at Blue Island General Hospital, Ken, right? What, really? Oh, I forgot to introduce myself. I'm the chief of surgery at the General Hospital, Tom. Tom? The one who was headhunted here last year? What a coincidence, Tom said with a gentle smile. Yes. Suddenly, Emily's attitude changed. Looking back, this kind of behavior was nothing new. I just hadn't noticed before. I'm so sorry. I didn't realize because of your casual attire. No problem, casual clothes are just that. I tightly gripped the hem of the work clothes Tom was wearing at the moment. What's wrong, Mary? Let's go home. Are you sure? She's an old friend, right? Yeah. I have so much I want to talk about. Let's just go. All right then. We'll catch up another time. Yes. Emily's cheerful voice irked me to no end. What's wrong? You look pale, and your pulse is racing. Back in the car, as Tom was strapping Henry into his child seat, he checked my temperature and pulse. I don't ever want to see Emily again. I don't. And then he gently patted my trembling shoulder. If you don't want to see her, that's fine, but could you tell me why later? I silently nodded. That night, after putting Henry to bed, I told Tom everything that had happened. I see. So, that woman was the one you were engaged to before our meeting, who cheated before the wedding. You knew? I knew there was something sad in your past. I nodded silently, several times. Yes. And it's not just that. Always. Tears of frustration wouldn't stop. It's always the same. I only realize something's wrong after it happens. I've always hated Emily. If that's the case, it's pretty bad. And it seems she has a nasty obsession with you. With me? Yeah. I mean, what's with luring away every guy who gets close to you, only to dump them? What does she think they are to you? Well, yes, but... Even your ex-fiancé, he's not married now, right? If he's married to our Ken, that is. Indeed, that's right. Still, Ken, and... Tom seemed lost in thought. What's wrong? About Emily's husband? I've been thinking. Hey, Mary, how do you want to deal with her from now on? Deal with her? That's impossible, obviously. Just thinking about it makes me feel suffocated. There was a time when just thinking about Emily would give me panic attacks. It's okay. I'm sorry. Yeah, I get that you really don't want to be anywhere near that woman. So, I have an idea. An idea? Yes. A way to ensure that a woman never appears before you again. And then, Tom smiled gently again. Oh, that's right, this man, though he seems gentle, knows when to take action. 2 weeks later in the evening. As I was preparing dinner waiting for Tom's return, Mom, Grandpa and Grandma. Suddenly, Henry pointed out the window. Right after that, the doorbell rang. Indeed, it was my parents. I rushed to welcome them in. They live several counties away. A few hours by car. What's going on? Why are you here? Yeah, Tom called us. Said he absolutely needed us to house sit. House sit? Didn't you know? I hurriedly messaged Tom. Immediately, I got a message back, your dad and mom have arrived, huh? Come here now. And bring your smartphone earbuds, along with a URL to a certain store. I don't know what's going on, but I need to go out now. Unusual for Tom to do something like this. I was in the middle of making dinner. No problem, we'll finish it up. Let's make it our dinner. Wondering what was happening, I started to get ready to leave. By the way, Mary, we saw that girl's parents at the service area on the way here. My mother suddenly shared. That girl? Yes, that girl. Ah, just remembering her is irritating, that. Emily? I don't even want to say her name. Yes, but I wonder what was going on. I hadn't told my parents that Emily lived nearby. Given how down I was back then, my mom was incredibly worried. And the things she said about Emily's parents were harsh. Honestly, I never thought my mom could speak so harshly. Given that history, I thought it best not to mention Emily over the phone, to avoid stirring up trouble.
I'll be going then.
I got into the car and headed to the restaurant Tom had indicated. It was a cozy, nice-looking restaurant. According to the store's URL, the dinner seemed reasonably priced. Was Tom waiting here for me? As I got out of the car, noticing several parked vehicles as the evening deepened, I received another message.
Put on the earbuds and come inside.
Wondering what this was about, I entered. A waiter guided me to a two-person table. A man in black, wearing sunglasses, was sitting across an empty seat. Leaning forward with his elbows on the table, hands over his mouth, looking very solemn. He emitted an unapproachable aura.
My companion hasn't arrived yet.
As I started to tell the waiter bringing water and offering a menu, he put a finger to his lips and subtly pointed across the Erica palms to a seat directly opposite. There was Tom. There were several dishes on the table, probably an early dinner. Tom was sitting across from a woman. I nodded to the waiter and ordered something light enough not to be out of place on the table. Then my phone vibrated in my bag. Startled, I checked it and saw it was from Tom. I hurriedly connected the earbuds to my smartphone and put them in my ears. Then I heard,
Ken is a good doctor. A plastic surgeon.
But Dr. Tom is much more amazing, isn't he? The voice of a woman with her back turned jumped into my ears. It was Emily. Startled, I switched to recording mode. Tom was deliberately letting me listen. Since then, I've had Ken tell me a bit about you.
Is that so?
I was amazed. I mean, you've handled many difficult surgeries domestically, right? I heard he has thousands of surgical achievements over 10 years.
Well, it's my job.
That's incredible. Emily's tone had changed completely from the other day.
And you researched that thoroughly, huh?
Actually, I heard it from Ken. When I mentioned meeting you by chance the other day. At that moment, the man in black loosened his crossed hands, slightly lifted his hips, and then sat back down. I noticed he too had earbuds in.
It must have been a surprise to suddenly reunite with an old friend.
Yes, but meeting you was the highlight for me.
Shouldn't an old friend be more important? No, I felt bad for speaking so disparagingly about you before, and I was sorry.
Emily continued in a tone as if she might bite her tongue. I didn't know. She never spoke like this when she was with me during our student days. So, this was how she acted around men. And Yosef too had seen this side of her. Which means... Anyway, are you satisfied with your marriage to Mary?
I am satisfied, but why do you ask?
Isn't it boring being with Mary?
Why would you say that?
Because she was abandoned by her fiancé back then.
Mary is a great wife. Too good for someone like me.
But she's plain, isn't she?
What are you trying to say?
Actually, since we talked the other day, I've fallen for your calm demeanor and presence. I think I can do much more for you than Mary could. The man in black's hands on the table began to tremble visibly. So, this man is indeed.
Oh, for me? What do you mean by that?
Well, you must be invited to parties and such, right? Having a plain wife like Mary at such events might be embarrassing, right? Those occasions need someone a bit more, well, like me.
So you wouldn't be embarrassed?
Yes.
So you're suggesting you want to switch from Ken to me?
What? No, that sounds terrible when you put it that way.
Then what do you mean?
I'm a bit dense when it comes to these things. Making a woman say it outright? Didn't I tell you, it was love at first sight? Ken is a promising man. You should stick with him, not an old man like me. Age doesn't matter. Actually, I've been disappointed with him. That was when it happened. The man in black started to stand up. I hurried over to him. The man in black, likely Ken. I silently looked at him and showed my smartphone, still connected to the earbuds. Ken looked startled and sat back down. I needed to hear something more decisive. Disappointed. What do you mean?
Is it because he comes home late? If that's the case, it's his job. Unfortunately, patients and diseases don't wait.
No, it's not that. Whether he comes home late or not, that's not the issue.
Then what is it?
His salary.
Given his age and career, it's normal. Young professionals are like that. But he's a doctor.
So?
Well, if your spouse is a doctor, you expect an income over $200,000, right? I believe he makes around $140,000 as it is. When we got married, his salary was even less, and I was disappointed, given my expectations, and he goes off to conferences and such without taking me along.
So, with me, you think it would be different?
I'm not after your money. That's why I keep saying it was love at first sight.
Meaning?
I want to be with you.
At that moment, Ken finally stood up. I tried to stop him, but it was too late. He stood behind Emily, across the Erica palms. I hurried after him. Then, Tom gave a slight smile again.
Emily, is what you just said true?
Behind an unsuspecting Emily. Ken spoke in a low voice.
What? What are you two doing? Cheating? See, when you have something to hide, you end up saying such things.
Tom said calmly to Emily.
I heard what you said. So, you've always thought of me like that? What do you mean, like that?
Isn't this what you mean? I presented the recording of the conversation to Emily.
What's this?
Tom took out 2 smartphones from his bag. One was connected to me, and the other must have been connected to Ken.
Do you even know what age a doctor becomes fully qualified? What are you talking about all of a sudden? We spend years in medical school, then another years as residents before becoming full-fledged doctors. I had just become a full-fledged doctor when we met. What?
Emily began to count on her fingers.
Basically, I was just a newbie. But you said you were a doctor at the mixer. I was a doctor, wasn't I? And at that time, I was dragged there by a high school friend. I thought it was too early for marriage. Yet, you came at me aggressively. Even so, I was earning more than my peers. You assumed I made more than that on your own.
Indeed, that's true. Doctors do earn well, but not until they are fully qualified. And whether they own a practice, where they work, their employment status, and their age can all affect their income. And it's true that their chances for marriage are less frequent.
It was a rare outing because I was busy starting out. I initially refused because I was still finding my footing. But that's true, but it might sound like an excuse, but I wanted to work in rural healthcare and needed to gain experience in the field to be as versatile as possible. But you would hysterically scream whenever I mentioned it. But I didn't want to go to a rural area. Even when I said it pays better, you refused. And it's not just that. You said you'd be a housewife to support me, yet you barely do any housework. What?
I was surprised at that.
But housework isn't just for women these days.
That's if both are working. I chimed in.
In this day and age, if you decide to be a stay-at-home wife, you really need to do the housework perfectly and make sure your husband doesn't have to worry about anything. Mary! Even you say that. But, can you do all that? And what about socializing? You seem to be confused about something.
Tom sighed deeply.
You have a clearly mistaken image of a doctor's wife.
Exactly. That's more like the image of a show-era housewife.
The glamorous life you imagine doesn't exist. I'm always watching the clock for his uncertain return time, taking care of our child, and making sure he has the nutrition he needs to sustain the energy for those 10-hour surgeries.
Oh, I see.
Ken, there were times I thought you lacked attention, but maybe you're not getting enough sleep at home?
Yes.
Well, I used to cook and do housework on my own, so it's okay. But it cuts into my sleep, and when I'm awake, he's all over me, making it hard to find time to study. Study? Of course. It's natural to keep updating my knowledge for the patients.
So, Mary,
you study too? Now of all times.
Of course.
If I can't respond to his sudden calls, it would be troubling. If it were two doctors married, maybe housework and secretarial tasks could be outsourced. But I'm just an ordinary person, so doing what I can to support Tom is my job. For him, the hospital, the patients, and to show our son a good work ethic. How pretentious! Say whatever you want. I'm not who I used to be anymore.
That's right. Seeing Emily trying to seduce Tom directly ignited a different kind of anger in me, unlike the fear I had felt before. Unable to retort because of the frustration at being contradicted by me, Emily stood silent. Then, Ken started speaking as if to seal the deal.
Emily, I've decided to break up with you. We're getting a divorce. What? What are you talking about? Being with you, I can't become the doctor I want to be. And let me ask again, do you have any intention of following me to a rural area? No way! I don't want to go to such places.
I see. But I want to go.
That's why I'm done being dragged around by you.
Emily's expression froze in shock.
You're going to leave me, you are.
Then, suddenly, Emily turned to me.
That's right, Mary. It was wrong of me to reunite with you. Why did you have to come here? If only we hadn't met. If we hadn't met, you wouldn't have thought about taking my husband? You haven't changed at all since college. What? How dare you?
Watching her, I gradually realized that Emily's existence evoked more pity than fear in me.
Why have you always taken and discarded my boyfriends or those who could have been? Because I hated you, the plain and good girl. So, you put so much effort into someone you hate just because of that? You ended up running away from home because of what happened with Yosef.
That's right. Her actions were indeed strange. I don't know what she disliked about me, but if she hated me, ignoring or bullying me would have been simpler. Instead, she took and discarded men in a way that other friends could see. And then ended up demanding compensation after taking my fiancé.
Hey, Emily, does that mean you actually really liked me? What?
Her eyes widened as if saying, "What are you talking about?" I wondered if the visibly bulging veins in her slender neck were just my imagination. It's said that veins bulge in the temples when angry.
Other than with Yosef, I hardly noticed. And the men who switched to you because of your schemes were only proving their worth. In the end, it worked out in my favor, didn't it? No, that's not true. It can't be. Even if I had married Yosef, he might have cheated anyway. So, Emily, were you actually blocking my unhappiness? What?
Her gaze wandered aimlessly.
Haven't you realized? That can't be.
But I'm sorry.
I'll forget about you from now on. No. That can't be true.
As she said this, Emily clutched her chest and suddenly collapsed in front of us.
Doctor!
Ken looked seriously at Tom.
Call an ambulance, quick! Right away!
After explaining the situation to the ambulance, Tom and Ken also left with it. Tom specializes in cardiac surgery. He probably won't be coming home tonight. As I sighed deeply, the waiter brought the order.
Thank you. I'm sorry for the commotion. No worries, Dr. Tom had reserved this time for a private event.
How thoughtful. He really takes action when it's needed. I thought with a smile. Later, at the hospital, there was another commotion. Tom's plan included Emily's parents coming in after this. Emily had only informed them of her marriage, but had never introduced Ken to them. Perhaps the timing had prevented interstate travel. But that time had passed. Tom, through Ken, had contacted Emily's parents for two reasons. Potential trouble with men and Emily's health issues Tom had noticed from the start. Tom seems to have had doubts about the way the veins in the right side of her neck bulged from the first time they met. Indeed, Emily was found to have a cardiac condition. Early intervention saved her life, but she required some hospitalization. Her parents, upon arriving, decided to take her home. Emily was shaken by the divorce, the sudden discovery of her illness, and being called out by me. She seemed quite shaken by those three things.
No, I don't want to go back home.
Emily resisted her parents, but they insisted, you need to repay us for the compensation we fronted on your behalf. But her father's stern anger about the compensation she owed left her powerless. The divorce led to mediation, where misuse of Ken's savings was brought up, increasing the amount owed by her parents. Dragged back home, Emily was now under her parents' watchful eyes, unable to escape. Working off her debt. For someone as carefree as Emily, this must be unbearable. Oh, there's a message from Ken. Today is the weekend. Tom has taken a half day off from work, so for the first time in a while, we've come to a park with a large grassy area as a family of 3. Despite the continuing cold days, Henry, dressed warmly, is running around on the grass, laughing. Looking energetic, isn't he? Sitting side by side on a bench with a view of Henry, we take turns looking at an email. Look at this photo. In the photo, Ken is participating in a festival, smiling together with the locals. A stark contrast to his previously troubled expression. That's good to hear. You won't be troubled by the past anymore. Truly. Half of it was the fear I had conjured up myself. It seems to have vanished somewhere after facing Emily. Daddy! Henry waves at us enthusiastically. All right, here I come. Tom dashes off after him. And I watch the two of them. Now and in the future too.